In today's video, we're going to dive into the upcoming weather pattern and take a look at something I find extremely interesting. I'm calling it a revolving door pattern because we'll see cycles of warm-ups, cool-downs, and then warm-ups followed by more cool-downs, all happening pretty rapidly. Typically, this kind of pattern leads to more storminess. You might not believe it, but this often results in more snowfall than a purely cold pattern. As many of you have likely noticed over the past 3 weeks or so, extreme cold can sometimes disrupt snowfall. This revolving door pattern could bring more opportunities for snow and, in general, more severe weather. At the same time, there might be some warmer days sprinkled in, which I'm sure many of us will appreciate after the recent cold. A little warmth would be nice to get outdoors, see the sun, and feel the temperature rise. It's been incredibly cold lately. Overall, I expect a more active weather pattern. So let's take a closer look. Starting with the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, we can see a mix of conditions. The Midwest and plains are expected to be warmer, while the Northeast and parts of the Mid-Atlantic are likely to experience colder temperatures. The Southeast appears warmer and the Northwest leans colder. It's quite a mixed bag. When we look at precipitation, it becomes evident that this pattern tends to bring above average precipitation to much of the eastern and central U.S. In contrast, the southwest corridor and parts of the northern plains are expected to see less activity. Interestingly, even the typically wetter northwest is expected to have more activity during the January 28th to February 1st time frame. Moving on to the 8 to 14 day outlook, we see a warming trend, particularly in the east during the January 30th to February 5th period. Some colder temperatures will linger in New England and the Northwest, but overall, the early part of February looks to bring a warmer regime. Precipitation is also expected to increase. This back and forth temperature pattern isn't purely warm or cold. It's a mix, as we've seen from the Climate Prediction Center's projections. This type of pattern allows for more activity, with low pressure systems riding along the jet stream, bringing cold fronts and the type of weather we've been missing over the last 3 weeks. Looking at the past 20 days, we can see a significant cooling trend. Some areas have experienced temperatures 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is on the extreme end of the spectrum. As we move forward, we're still in a period of intense cold, and the revolving door pattern hasn't set in just yet. For now, storm activity remains limited. On Friday, the weather will still be cold and relatively inactive. By Saturday, much of the same continues, cold and quiet. However, on Sunday, January 26th, we start to see some changes. Storm systems will begin to develop over Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and parts of Arkansas. Meanwhile, cooler weather and some precipitation could help the Southwest, which has been dealing with wildfires in Southern California. Snowfall in the Sierra Nevada mountains will also be welcome given the below average snowpack this season. This snow is vital not only for water supplies in California, but also for the local economy, particularly for ski resorts. On Monday, January 27th, storms continue in the Southwest and Gulf states, bringing showers and isolated thunderstorms. Snowfall will occur near the Great Lakes, and the East will start to experience a warming trend. While temperatures might still be near or slightly below average, it's a noticeable improvement from the extreme cold we've been dealing with. By Tuesday, January 28th, a cold front trailing behind a 984 millibar low pressure system near Maine and Canada will bring cooler air and snow showers. This illustrates the roller coaster pattern I've been talking about, warming followed quickly by cooling. On Wednesday, January 29th, the warmth returns slightly. A clipper system will move through the Great Lakes, heading into the Mid-Atlantic and possibly the Northeast, bringing light to moderate snow. Meanwhile, another low-pressure system will form over Texas, bringing rain and possibly thunderstorms to Texas and Oklahoma. Snowfall is also expected in the Four Corners region. As we move toward Thursday, this storm system becomes much more interesting. It's expected to bring a warm push to the east as the low pressure system continues to develop. You can see signs of a warm front trying to form, accompanied by a cold front trailing below it. Behind this system, snowfall is likely for Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico, and possibly even parts of Kansas. In the warm sector, we'd primarily be watching for thunderstorms in this corridor if the storm evolves as anticipated for Thursday, January 30th. In addition, a significant storm system will impact the Northwest, bringing much needed snowfall to the Cascade Mountains. By Friday, this system gets even more intriguing. A defined low pressure center, a cold front stretching beneath it, and a warm front close by will create a warm sector along the southeast coast. This setup will likely result in a significant warm up for the area behind the warm front and could lead to widespread thunderstorm activity across Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. This could potentially develop into a severe weather event, depending on how the storm tracks. Model runs have consistently shown a low moving northward from the south central region into the Midwest or Ohio Valley. So confidence in a storm occurring is high, though its exact location may vary. Regardless, it would likely bring threats of severe weather and snowfall to the plains and Midwest. By Saturday, February 1st, the cold front becomes more defined, with thunderstorms developing across Tennessee, North Carolina, and points southward. There's also a potential for icy or snowy conditions in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. A secondary low is expected to form along the cold front, which is common, and it could move into the Mid-Atlantic region. This would bring a resurgence of thunderstorms across the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, with heavy rain for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and possibly wintry weather in Maine. The warm sector of the storm will dominate initially, but the cold front will follow, ushering in colder air. Meanwhile, the West will continue to experience significant snowfall and cold, particularly in the Cascades and Northern Rockies, which would be highly beneficial. As we move into early February, this active pattern looks set to continue, with the cold air attempting to push back in and warmth trying to regain ground. This seesawing pattern will likely result in frequent storms, including snowfall in the Midwest and Great Lakes, and mixed precipitation in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Looking ahead, the first week of February is shaping up to be very active, with storms riding along the northern jet stream, which is expected to remain positioned across the region. This will bring a mix of snowfall, rainfall, and transitional precipitation types across the country. It's a dynamic setup, promising significant activity to close out January and begin February. When examining the GFS model, similar trends are apparent. Conditions remain very cold and dry initially, but one storm, which we also observed on the European model, stands out for the Deep South around the January 27th timeframe. While the European model hasn't shown snowfall with this storm, the GFS hints at potential snow across parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia, especially in mountainous regions. There's sufficient cold air nearby for snowfall, but the storm remains a bit too far south. A slight shift in the track could introduce a more substantial threat for the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. We're still about 4 days out, roughly 100 hours, so there's time for trends to develop. Keep an eye on that date, as there's a small chance we could see notable impacts. Both models generally downplay this system, though the GFS shows a clipper system moving through the Great Lakes on January 28th to 29th, eventually bringing light snow to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. By the end of January, both models highlight increased activity in the Deep South, with thunderstorms across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. These storms extend into the Gulf states and Southeast, accompanied by wintry weather for the northern plains and upper Midwest around February 1st. A strong southeast ridge is also trying to establish itself, which would result in significant warmth spreading across the southeast. After the historic winter storm that impacted the Gulf Coast and Southeast, things have quieted down, but the weather pattern is gearing up to become active again as we approach late January and the first week of February. We'll break down all the details for you right here. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for detailed and accurate weather breakdowns. Don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and share it with friends, family, and on social media. Your support is greatly appreciated. Warming up this weekend, as we look at the weather pattern for the rest of January, the departure of Arctic air is the key highlight. The deep blues, representing very cold air, are retreating from the eastern U.S. and Canada. This polar vortex stretched far south, bringing freezing conditions all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. In its wake, a ridge of high pressure has set up, which is typical after such cold air moves out. In Southern California, a cutoff low pressure system could bring much needed precipitation to the region, especially as wildfires continue to pose a threat. Notably, a major wildfire east of San Diego started just a few hours ago. This system could help alleviate those concerns. Looking at temperature anomalies, we see Arctic air in the central and eastern U.S. as of today, but this will shift eastward by Friday. Moderating temperatures will move into the plains and upper Midwest this weekend. While cooler air remains in place, it won't be nearly as cold as the past few days. Snow chances next week as the week rounds out and we head into the weekend. Lake effect snow will persist around the Great Lakes, impacting areas near Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. If you're in these regions, expect challenging travel conditions, particularly in areas with heavier snow bands. Western New York, western lower Michigan, and Michigan's Upper Peninsula are especially prone to these snowfalls, which could intensify through Friday. A clipper system will also develop, bringing surprise snow to parts of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and northern U.S. states such as Minnesota on Friday. By Saturday, it will track across the upper Great Lakes and into southeastern Canada. This system could deliver snow to upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern Maine as we head into Sunday. Lake effect snow will continue to accumulate over the weekend, with some areas like Watertown, New York, seeing 8 to 12 inches of snow. In the Rockies, mountainous areas from Montana southward to Colorado will also experience snowfall. Drought relief in Southern California, shifting focus to the drought-stricken Southwest. Severe and extreme drought conditions persist in Southern California. While this is expected for a desert region, the situation has worsened wildfire risk. However, relief is on the way. Moisture will begin to return Saturday night, bringing light rain to the foothills and lower elevations of Southern California, as well as snow to the Sierras. While it won't be heavy rain, it will be enough to dampen the ground and help mitigate wildfire risks. This rain will spread to areas like Los Angeles, San Diego, Phoenix, Flagstaff, and Albuquerque through the end of the month. Some spots could see over an inch of rain, which is highly beneficial. We're seeing a lot more moisture return to the western U.S., which is incredibly helpful and beneficial. Now, let's dive into the weather pattern heading into next week across the lower 48. European model overview, Monday, January 29th. A clipper system will move across the upper Great Lakes and into Ontario, continuing the pattern we've observed over the past few days. Tuesday, January 30th. Clipper systems will continue to bring lake effect snow across the northeast and northern Ohio Valley. Wednesday, January 31st. Snow is expected in the mountains of Colorado and New Mexico, with rain developing across the Red River Valley and into northern Texas and Oklahoma. Thursday, February 1st, rain and thunderstorms are likely across Arkansas, East Texas, and Louisiana, while snow spreads from Colorado into Nebraska and western Kansas. By the weekend, a winter storm could form, affecting the Midwest and Great Lakes. GFS model overview. Similar to the European model, The GFS shows clipper systems early in the week with lake effect snow in the Northeast and Ohio Valley through Tuesday. By Wednesday, rain will return to Texas and the southern U.S., accompanied by snow in New Mexico and the Texas Panhandle. The GFS, however, is slower in ejecting the trough into the middle of the country compared to the European model. Both models agree on a winter storm risk in the Central Plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes by the weekend, but exact details like timing and intensity will become clearer as we get closer. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for my next update. I'll keep you protected before and after the storm.